Out of nowhere, this gorgeous girl approached me and my friend at the bar, wearing a beautiful red dress and bright red hair. It felt like something out of a movie, where the mysterious beauty shows up, and you just know things are about to get really interesting. There we were, my buddy and me, totally caught off guard because honestly, girls like her don't usually come up to guys like us, especially not on a regular Tuesday night. I couldn't help but try to figure out her intentions. There's this vibe like she's genuinely into the conversation, but the whole time I'm thinking, is she more into my friend or is it me she's actually interested in? But honestly, she seems to be more interested in my friend who was deep in his drunken haze, and I was awkwardly trying to bridge the gap, pretending to be more into the night than I actually was. The thought crossed my mind that maybe she was just angling for some free drinks, so playing it smart. I mentioned casually that we weren't exactly rolling in cash tonight. But, plot twist, she shrugged it off and offered to buy us a round instead. And true to her word, she did. It was a curveball that had me reevaluating the night. As the night went on, she didn't stop at just one round of drinks. She kept them coming, and before we knew it, my friend was way past his limit. Things took a turn when he stumbled off to the bathroom and, on his attempt to make it back, ended up getting the boot from the bouncers for being too hammered. So there we were, me and her. Let's call her Jessica, following my drunk friend outside. Jessica, in a move that surprised me, started insisting that he should head back to her place. But there was no way I was letting that happen. The guy could barely stand straight, and the last thing I needed was for him to wake up with a killer hangover in some random house, without his car, and no clue about the night before. I stood my ground, but Jessica wasn't backing down easy. She kept on pushing, saying she'd look after him, but it sounded like trouble waiting to happen. I guess she figured I was being protective, maybe even a bit jealous, trying to block my friend from what she thought was a good time. That's when she switched tactics, offering to call him a taxi. It was clear she had a plan, but I was starting to question what her endgame really was. Once my friend was safely off in a taxi, Jessica's attention shifted entirely to me. The vibe changed, and she started laying on the charm thick, suggesting we head to her place, just the two of us. With a few drinks already under my belt, the buzz was real, and in that moment, going with her seemed like a good idea. We made our way to her car and hit the road, but not long after, she pulled up at a liquor store. "Do you want to grab some more drinks? Don't worry about the cost. I've got it," she offered. Truth be told, I wasn't keen on loading up on more alcohol. The buzz I had going was enough, and I was well aware of how ridiculous I could get when I crossed that line from buzzed to outright drunk. The last thing I wanted was to mess my hookup with Jessica, especially after how the night had started to turn. Trying to keep it cool, I let her know I was good, that I'd had enough for the night. But Jessica wasn't having any of it, she insisted. Not wanting to kill the mood or come off as a downer, I caved but tried to keep it light, so I asked for just a pint of liquor and some apple juice. Jessica popped into the store, and when she came back, she was carrying way more than the simple pint I'd asked for. It was clear she was planning for a much longer night than I had in mind. As we drove, she kept passing the bottle back to me, urging me to drink up while she barely touched the stuff herself, only taking the occasional tiny sip. The whole thing started to feel off. I didn't want to flat out refuse and make things awkward, so I got creative. Each time she handed me the bottle, I'd pretend to take a swig, but I was really just spitting it back into the apple juice bottle. I had to be sneaky about it, waiting for the right moment to ditch the evidence. So, at the first opportunity when I thought she wouldn't notice, I chucked the now liquor-filled apple juice bottle out the window. trying to stay a step ahead in a situation that was starting to feel more and more like I was losing my grip on it. But to be honest, I was looking forward to the time we'd spend together at her place. To keep up my act, I decided to dial up the drunk performance a notch. During the car ride, I deliberately called her the wrong name a few times, tossing out Carla instead of her actual name, just to see how she'd react. Weirdly enough, she didn't correct me, not even a flinch. She just rolled with it, letting Carla slide as if it were a nickname we'd been using for years. This whole name game got me thinking, why didn't she correct me? Was Jessica even her real name to begin with? Once we got to her place, the night took another turn. Jessica helped me out of the car, playing into the whole act that I was too drunk to manage on my own. We made our way to the front door, which, to my surprise, was already unlocked. It struck me as odd, but before I could dwell on it too much, she quickly ushered me inside and locked the door behind us. At that moment, a tiny alarm bell went off in my head. Locking the door like that, it was a bit too deliberate, kind of like she was making sure we wouldn't be disturbed. Or maybe it was to ensure no unexpected visitors would walk in. We headed towards the bedroom, the weight of the night and all its peculiarities starting to really sink in. The whole situation was far from what I'd expected when we first met at the bar. Once we were inside, I excused myself and made a beeline for the bathroom. Shutting and locking the door behind me, I was finally alone with my thoughts and a reflection that seemed to question my choices just as much as I did. Something about the situation was setting off alarms in my head, a gut feeling that something wasn't quite right. Despite my earlier act, the alcohol I had actually consumed was starting to hit me harder than I expected. Desperate not to lose control, I turned on the tap to mask any sound and forced myself to vomit, hoping to purge the booze and clear my head. Afterward, I cupped water from the tap, drinking it in an attempt to sober up. Part of me didn't want to be drunk, wanting to maintain some semblance of control. But another part was still drawn to Jessica, still intrigued by the light's potential. I was playing a dangerous game. With the water turned off, the bathroom was suddenly quiet, too quiet, and that's when I heard it. Jessica's voice muffled through the door. "He's drunk as hell. He can barely stand up. You do it." Wait, what? My heart kicked up a notch. Who is she talking to, and do what exactly? A million thoughts raced through my mind as I stepped out of the bathroom, my senses on high alert. That's when I saw her, or at least the back of her, her bright red hair in the low light as she disappeared into another room. "Hey, where are you going?" I tried to sound as drunk as I had been pretending to be, slurring my words. She reappeared from the darkness, moving closer. "Let's go in my room," she suggested, her voice a mix of invitation and something else I couldn't quite place. The unease in my gut twisted tighter. What was going on here? Who was she talking to before, and what were they planning to do? Despite my feigned drunkenness, I was sobering up fast, the adrenaline pumping through my veins, making sure of that. As I stood there trying to play the part of the drunken fool, I took a moment to really look at her. Something was off. The bright red hair was the same, sure, but her eyes, her face, it hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't the same girl. This was someone else wearing the same glaringly bright wig. My mind raced. Had they switched when I was in the bathroom? Why? Panic gripped me, but I fought to keep it off my face. I forced a smile, playing dumb, and mumbled something about needing the bathroom again, apologizing for my supposed drunken state. "It's fine. Just hurry up in there," she said, her voice cool, not matching the warmth I remembered from earlier. Once I locked myself in the bathroom, my heart was pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I was sure now, something was seriously wrong. Then, through the door, I heard her whispering again, but this time, a male voice whispered back, My stomach dropped. Who was he? What were they planning? Every warning bell in my head was ringing, and I knew I had to get out fast. In that moment, piecing together their whispered conversation wasn't my priority. Every instinct screamed that I needed to escape, and fast. Not wasting a second, I spotted the bathroom window, pried it open, and without a second thought, hurled myself through it into the unknown night. Adrenaline pumped through my veins as I hit the ground running, faster than I've ever known I could. I didn't stop, couldn't stop, my legs moving as if on autopilot, propelling me towards the main road's relative safety. The bright lights of a 24-hour convenience store eventually came into view. I burst through the doors, barely registering the surprised look of the cashier as I positioned myself squarely in front of the store's surveillance cameras. There, in the fluorescent glow of the store, I called a taxi, my mind still racing, trying to process the night's events. The day after, still rattled but driven by a need to understand, I rounded up a couple of friends to head back to the house. The whole ride there, I was thinking, why the fake name, the heavy drinking, and spending all that money on us, if it was a setup? And the wig swap, what was that about? Who was she talking to when I caught her whispering? The biggest head-scratcher was what they had planned for me in that room. Heading back there, it was like we were walking into a mystery, not sure if we actually wanted the answers. When we got there, the place was dead silent. No cars, no signs of anyone, just an empty house staring back at us. It felt eerie, like we'd missed the party by just a day and now we were left with the ghost of it. Turns out, the house was just a summer rental, and those people, they weren't supposed to be there at all. They'd broken in to use it for their little scheme that night, and then vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. I only have one question now. What was she planning to do to me?
Thank you.